We see this glow of light, but usually around comets, the glow is produced by dust.
It's interstellar, it came from outside the solar system. Could it be a Voyager-like meteor?
Telescopes were all pointed at it. Comet 3 I/ATLAS. It was racing towards us at over 100,000 miles per hour, and the world was expecting a light show. Then, the unthinkable happened. It started to break apart, but this wasn't a normal celestial event. A chilling warning came from a respected Harvard scientist, a man who doesn't scare easily. He suggested that among the icy debris were structured metal objects. This bombshell turned a simple comet-watching event into a global alert. The discovery forced us to question if this visitor was just a natural phenomenon or the wreckage of something else entirely. A visitor in the night. In the final days of 2019, astronomers at the ATLAS survey in Hawaii spotted something new, a faint smudge of light moving with purpose against the backdrop of distant stars. They named it C/2019 Y4, but the world would soon come to know it as Comet ATLAS. At first, it was just another routine discovery, one of thousands of comets logged by scientists. But Atlas was different. You see, this wasn't just any chunk of ice and rock. Its path was a gigantic, sweeping arc that took it from the Oort cloud, a mysterious, icy shell at the very edge of our solar system, a place we've never even seen. It takes thousands of years for an object to make that journey. This traveler was ancient. Many people were crazy about this comet. What really got the experts excited was its sudden, dramatic brightening. Throughout early 2020, Atlas started to glow with an intensity that shocked everyone. Every week, it got brighter and brighter, far faster than any normal comet should. Projections were off the charts. Some predicted it would become so brilliant it would be visible to the naked eye, even during the daytime. It was on track to become the celestial event of a generation, a shining beacon in the night sky. The media dubbed it the comet of the century. But not all things are what they seem. While the world was preparing for a spectacular light show, some scientists were watching with a growing sense of unease. One of them was Avi Loeb, the former chair of Harvard's astronomy department. Loeb is not your typical astronomer. He's a man who has built a reputation on asking uncomfortable questions, particularly about the possibility of extraterrestrial technology hiding in plain sight. He's the one who famously suggested that our first interstellar visitor, the bizarre object named Oumuamua, might have been an alien solar sail. So when he turned his attention to Comet ATLAS, his perspective wasn't just about ice and dust. He was looking for anomalies, for anything that didn't fit the natural explanation. And with ATLAS, he found them. The thing nobody tells you is that the very thing that made the comet so exciting, its incredible brightness, was also the first red flag. It was glowing too much, suggesting it was shedding material at an unsustainable rate. It was like a firework burning too brightly too quickly, a sign that it was unstable. To put it mildly, the comet was heading for a catastrophic failure. What many overlooked was that this instability could be the key to revealing its true nature. Loeb's warning was simple but terrifying. We needed to watch this object very, very closely because it was about to reveal a secret it had carried for millions of years from the edge of the solar system. A secret that might not be natural at all. What if the comet's self-destruction wasn't an ending, but an unveiling? The shattering. The excitement for Comet Atlas reached a fever pitch in March of 2020, but just as the world looked up, expecting a celestial spectacle, the show came to an abrupt end. The comet stopped brightening. Then, the worst-case scenario for skywatchers happened. It started to fade, and fast. Amateur astronomer Jose de Queiroz was one of the first to notice something was terribly wrong. His images showed the comet's once sharp core, its nucleus, had become elongated and fuzzy. It looked mushy. It was the beginning of the end. Within days, the Hubble Space Telescope was aimed at the dying comet, and what it saw sent a shockwave through the scientific community. Atlas was disintegrating. The Hubble images were breathtakingly clear. They showed not one but dozens of smaller individual fragments. The comet's heart had shattered into pieces. For most, this was a disappointment. The comet of the century was officially a dud, but for Avi Loeb and a handful of others, this was the moment they had been waiting for. This was the event that could finally provide answers. The fragmentation of a comet isn't unusual, but the way ATLAS came apart was. It wasn't a single clean break. It was a cascade of disintegration with pieces breaking off pieces. Some fragments were the size of a house, others as big as a football field. They were scattered over a distance of thousands of miles, a ghostly funeral procession of ice and dust. But here's where it gets weird. Some of these fragments were displaying highly unusual characteristics. The warning from Loeb suddenly took on a terrifying new dimension. His focus shifted to the debris field. The central question was no longer about the comet itself, but about what was inside it. When sunlight hits a piece of ice, it creates a tail of gas and dust through sublimation. But some of these fragments weren't producing the expected tails. More unnervingly, they were reflecting sunlight in a way that suggested they were solid, dense, and possibly metallic. The data was preliminary, but the hints were there. These were not fluffy snowballs. These were metal objects. The implications were staggering. Was it possible that Comet ATLAS was a kind of cosmic Trojan horse? A natural icy shell that had formed around a piece of non-natural technology millions of years ago, carrying it across the galaxy? This idea is, to put it mildly, controversial. The mainstream view is that these fragments were just denser chunks of the comet's original core, but the data didn't perfectly fit. The fragments didn't behave entirely like rock or ice. They seemed to hold together too well, and their brightness fluctuations were puzzling. It was a massive wow factor moment that the public largely missed. While news reports talked of a failed comet, the real story was in the debris. It raised a terrifying possibility that we weren't just witnessing the death of a comet, but the wreckage of something far more ancient and intelligently designed. The warning signs were all there. We just weren't sure how to read them. But this wasn't the first time an object had baffled us with its strange, metallic-like behavior. The alien technology hypothesis. To understand the full weight of the warning about Atlas, we have to rewind the clock to 2017. That was the year humanity got its first confirmed visitor from another star system. It was a bizarre, cigar-shaped object named Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word for scout, and it behaved like nothing we had ever seen before. It was small, maybe a few hundred feet long, dark, and it reflected light in a way that suggested it was made of metal. Most strangely, as it swung past our sun, it accelerated away, pushed by a mysterious force that was not gravity. It had no tail, no coma, no outgassing like a comet. It was, for all intents and purposes, a rock that was stepping on the gas. This is where Avi Loeb entered the international spotlight, while others struggled to explain Oumuamua with natural phenomena, like a nitrogen iceberg or a hydrogen comet. Loeb proposed a radical idea. He argued that Oumuamua was a piece of alien technology, specifically a solar sail, a thin light craft designed to be pushed by the pressure of starlight. Its strange acceleration, its shape, its metallic sheen, it all fit the profile. The scientific community largely pushed back, but the idea lodged itself in the public imagination. A scout from another civilization. What many overlooked is that Loeb's theory wasn't just a wild guess. It was based on the fact that no natural explanation fit all the data perfectly. Now fast forward back to 2020 and the disintegration of Comet ATLAS. You see the connection. Loeb's warning wasn't coming out of nowhere. He had a precedent. Oumuamua had already shown us that objects with strange, metallic, and uncomet-like properties exist in our solar system. The discovery of potential metal objects inside ATLAS was like finding a second completely different kind of anomaly that pointed in the same eerie direction. The thing is, this made the situation with ATLAS even more terrifying. Oumuamua was a single object that flew by. Atlas was something that appeared to be natural, a sheep in wolf's clothing that broke apart to reveal its artificial contents right on our doorstep. The theory goes something like this. What if an ancient alien probe or piece of technology, perhaps millions of years old, malfunctioned in the Oort cloud? Over eons, the cold of deep space would have allowed ice and dust to collect around it, encasing it in the shell of a natural-looking comet. Its long journey towards our sun was, in this scenario, an accident. As it got closer to the sun's heat, the icy shell began to weaken and sublimate, and the internal stresses caused the whole thing to shatter. What we were seeing was not the birth of a comet's tail, but the final catastrophic failure of an ancient machine revealing its metallic guts. This is a wow factor idea of the highest order, suggesting alien artifacts might not arrive as shiny flying saucers, but as dirty, icy, and broken cosmic ghosts. So where does that leave us now, with the comet gone and only questions remaining? A new kind of search. Today, the fragments of Comet Atlas have spread out so far and become so faint that they are essentially gone, dissolved back into the cosmic dust from which they came. The show is over. There is no smoking gun, no piece of alien metal sitting in a lab. So, was the terrifying warning justified? Or was it just a case of a few scientists letting their imaginations run wild? The truth is, we don't know for sure. And that might be the most unsettling conclusion of all. The mainstream scientific consensus remains that Comet Atlas was 100% a natural phenomenon, a particularly fragile comet that simply couldn't handle the sun's heat and tidal forces. They argue the metallic readings were likely misinterpretations of data from unusually dense, non-volatile chunks of the comet's core. But the mystery hasn't gone away. The questions raised by Avi Loeb and others continue to hang in the air. This whole event forces us to think differently about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The thing is, we, the average people, often think of this search in terms of radio signals or UFOs. We're looking for something deliberate, a message, or a visit. But what if the evidence is far more subtle? What if it's silent, broken, and ancient? What if it's junk? Our own planet is surrounded by a cloud of space junk, defunct satellites, old rocket stages, and metal debris from decades of exploration. Any advanced civilization would likely produce similar technological garbage. What if the galaxy is filled with this stuff, drifting for millions of years, until it's captured by a star's gravity, or, in this case, encased in a comet? This is where the story pivots from a simple astronomical event to a profound, down-to-earth question. Are we even looking for the right thing? The story of Comet ATLAS suggests we might be missing the forest for the trees. Perhaps the most compelling evidence for alien life won't be a greeting, but an accident. A piece of wreckage, a technological ghost. We're looking for needles in a haystack, but what if the needles look just like pieces of hay until they break apart under stress? We are missing a key detail in our search, looking for life when we should be looking for its ancient, silent artifacts. The Atlas event, in the end, was a powerful lesson. It tells us that the universe is not just stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine. And the next time a comet brightens unexpectedly, we'll be watching much, much more closely. Seeds from another star. Let's push this mystery even further into territory that is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. We've talked about the metal objects being wreckage, the silent ghosts of some ancient technology. But what if the disintegration of Comet ATLAS wasn't an accident? What if it was the entire point? The thing is, there's a well-known scientific theory called panspermia. The basic idea is that life, or at least its essential building blocks, can travel between planets and even between star systems by hitching a ride on comets and asteroids. We know for a fact that comets are packed with organic molecules, the stuff that life as we know it is made of. It's a wow factor in itself to realize that the water in your glass could have been delivered to Earth by a comet billions of years ago. But the standard panspermia theory relies on pure chance, a random impact, a random transfer. What if a civilization far more advanced than us decided not to leave the spread of life to chance? This leads to a truly wild theory, the directed panspermia probe. Imagine an alien civilization wanting to seed a galaxy with life. It would be impossible for them to visit every star themselves, but they could build microscopic, incredibly durable probes, almost like technological seeds, and pack them into a delivery system designed to travel for millions of years through the harshest conditions imaginable. And what's the perfect delivery system? A giant, icy comet. A comet provides shielding from radiation, it contains water, and it's a natural object that wouldn't arouse suspicion. Under this terrifying new lens, Comet ATLAS looks very different. The metal objects detected weren't just junk, they were the cargo. They could have been sophisticated containers, perhaps only a few inches across, engineered to protect their precious contents. And what were those contents? Maybe microbial life, extremophiles capable of surviving the vacuum of space and reawakening on a new world. Or maybe it was even more advanced, a complete genetic blueprint, a biological hard drive designed to kickstart evolution on any habitable planet it encounters. The comet's journey from the Oort cloud wasn't an accident. It was a long, slow, pre-programmed trajectory, and its disintegration as it neared our sun wasn't a failure. It was the deployment sequence. It was designed to shatter and scatter its payload across the inner solar system, peppering Earth, Mars, and other potential habitats with its alien seeds. The warning issued by Loeb wasn't about a collision, it was about a potential contamination on a planetary scale. We weren't just looking at a celestial visitor, we might have been witnessing the final stage of the oldest and most ambitious biological mission in the history of the galaxy. This theory is chilling, but what if the alien intelligence wasn't in the comet, but was the comet itself? The von Neumann swarm. Now we are going to dive off the deep end, into a possibility so strange it makes alien probes seem ordinary. So far, we've assumed that any alien intelligence would be like us, using technology and machines to travel the void. But what if life itself can take on forms we can barely comprehend? What if the intelligence we're looking for isn't made of flesh and blood, but of crystal and light, existing in the freezing cold of deep space? This leads to the sentient comet hypothesis. The thing nobody tells you is that some theoretical physicists have entertained the idea of life based not on carbon, but on other elements, existing as vast, interconnected crystalline or plasma structures in space. In this mind-bending scenario, Comet ATLAS wasn't carrying an alien, it was the alien. A massive, slow-thinking ancient being whose consciousness was spread across its entire icy structure. Its journey through our solar system was perhaps a migration it had made for eons, but this time something went wrong. The sun's gravitational forces and intense heat were too much, and the ancient being couldn't handle the stress. The fragmentation Hubble witnessed wasn't a mechanical failure, it was the creature's body being torn apart. Its death. The strange, dense, metallic objects weren't containers or engine parts. They were the being's complex internal organs, its nervous system made of exotic minerals and ice, exposed to our telescopes for the first and last time. But there is one more theory, perhaps the most terrifying of all, because it suggests we weren't just observing a visitor, but were on the edge of a battlefield. It's called the von Neumann probe war. A von Neumann probe is a theoretical concept of a smart, self-replicating spacecraft. You send one out to a star system. It uses the local resources, like asteroids, to build perfect copies of itself. Those copies then travel to other star systems and do the same. In this way, a single probe could create a swarm that explores and colonizes the entire galaxy in a few million years. It's a wow factor concept that many scientists think is the most logical way to explore the cosmos. But what if two different alien civilizations launched von Neumann swarms? What happens when they meet? This theory proposes that Comet Atlas wasn't just a comet at all, but a carrier, a stealthy mothership for a swarm of von Neumann probes. The thing is, these are not your average space probes. They are brilliant, self-replicating machines designed to colonize a galaxy. The detected metal objects weren't random wreckage. They were the probes themselves, lying dormant in the ice, waiting for the right moment. The comet was the perfect camouflage, a natural-looking vessel carrying a technological army. But what many overlooked is that as it entered our solar system, it might have crossed into territory that was already claimed. The theory suggests it was detected by a rival swarm, an entirely different alien intelligence that was already here or just passing through. What happened next wasn't a natural event. The disintegration of ATLAS wasn't caused by the sun's heat. To put it mildly, it was a deliberate act, a defensive or offensive strike from a competing intelligence. We may have witnessed a silent, long-distance battle in our own cosmic backyard. Imagine a skirmish in a Cold War that has been fought across the heavens for millions of years. This would perfectly explain the chaotic multi-point breakup of the comet and the sudden appearance of advanced metallic technology within its debris. It also offers a chilling answer to the famous Fermi paradox, which asks, where is everybody? Maybe they're everywhere, but they are far too busy fighting each other in the dark, silent voids between stars to ever stop and say hello. So, was ATLAS a natural comet or the wreckage of ancient alien tech? Maybe we'll never know for sure, but it forces you to wonder, what other secrets are flying right over our heads? Let us know your theory in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more cosmic mysteries.